This is now being turned over to the National Security Division at DOJ. Charlie Hurt on the couch with us today. Your impression?
Well, thank goodness. This is the Russian investigation that we need. It's the Russian investigation we've needed all along. It's the Russian, the effort to thwart Russia that should have been going on under the Obama administration when all of this stuff was actually happening. Unfortunately, the whole issue has been so politicized by people trying to smear Donald Trump that we lose sight of this very important issue. But one thing that I thought was really interesting, Rod Rosenstein, at the end of that, after giving a very good recitation of the charges and what they were doing, I'm thrilled that they're doing this. At the end, he goes off into this lecture about politics.
I wonder if it's not part of what you said, though, because, Rachel, this is so politicized. And what he was talking about is our response must not be based on who benefits or who is harmed by interference in our elections. I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that was the bottom line.
Well, and he did say the blame is on the Russians indicted. It's not on anybody else, which says it's not on Obama, as you mentioned. Right. Really, this happened under Obama's watch, and so that's something. I think the other important thing he did say, he said it did not impact the election, and I think the
outcome of it,
and the other important thing is there's still no evidence that Donald Trump's campaign colluded with the Russians in this. So I think those are two very important things that come out. We've spent millions of dollars in almost 2 years trying to find even a scrap of evidence about that.
And well, but now we know they did something. Yeah. But I thought it was, and I'm going to say it again, no indication that Americans knew with whom they were necessarily dealing. Dagan?
Right. There was still a recklessness on behalf of the Clinton campaign and also the Democratic National Committee. We should point out that Debbie Wasserman Schultz had a statement at the ready, who was running the DNC at the time. And, of course, she brings up, despite Donald Trump's dangerous distortions and his refusal to acknowledge the conclusions reached by the American intelligence community. One thing we also know from former FBI Director James Comey, that the FBI never got actual access to the servers at the DNC. The DNC would not hand them over to the FBI at the time.
Can I just step in with a question? Didn't we think that they were hacked? I mean, wouldn't there have been some interesting reasons to...
What they did was the DNC called a third party to come in and go through the servers themselves rather than handing them over to the FBI. And so at the beginning of last year, Comey said, we got the forensics from the pros that they hired, which, again, best practice is always to get access to the machines themselves.
Well, that's what Rosenstein is saying he wants now, forfeiture of all of those computer networks and servers. Of course.
So we'll see what happens there. But if I could just jump in, I mean, I think one of the most important things about what we just saw here is that this is coming right ahead of that meeting with President Putin. And, the president was asked earlier today when he was in that press conference, are you going to bring up the idea of Russia meddling in the election? And he said, well, absolutely, I'm going to bring it up, but I don't think he's going to admit to it. I'm paraphrasing. I don't think we're going to have the Perry Mason moment where Vladimir Putin jumps up, oh, you got me, you're right, I meddled in the election. But he's saying here, here the DOJ, here's proof of exactly what the Russians did. And I think that, by virtue of Rosenstein putting a button on it saying, now let's not get political, because where this conversation breaks down is when immediately people jump to, yes, they meddled in the election for the benefit of this one and against that one, and this one knew. He doesn't want the second part of that conversation to begin. Let's just all agree that the Russians meddled. It's a problem. We need to take it to them and say it.
The Russians have always meddled in elections.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's really, I act like this is some big new thing that happened under Trump. They meddle in all elections, and it's bad, and we need to deal with it.
How should we deal with it, Rachel?
Well, I think this is a good step in bringing awareness towards it. I mean, we need to look at what Obama did and didn't do during that period of time. We need to look at, we need to get that server. I think you brought up such a great point, Dagan. I mean, here's the thing.
Well, they have clearly enough information from to bring these indictments today.
That's right.
The one thing I'll point out is the Director of National Intelligence, and we've heard this over and over and over again, but we've heard it this year again. that the cyber threat is our greatest national security risk. It's not any individual nation. And I think that it's ultimately up to the people who run campaigns, political organizations, and private corporations that we've got to do a lot more to protect the nation.
And it's an interesting point, too, because you heard Rosenstein talking about that. He said that when you couple what they want to do to us and to our democracy, again, paraphrasing, but when you couple that with anybody's political or partisan motivation, it gets to be something that's not just counterproductive, but actually perhaps risky to our own national intelligence.
And I thought it was interesting that the question that got asked of him as he was walking away, he didn't answer it, but somebody called out asking on whose orders was this done, clearly trying to get Rosenstein to say something about Putin so that that could be used in talks with between Trump and Putin. So, you know, if Trump
Does this help the president, though, as he sits down with President Putin of Russia? Now it's not going to be all of the intelligence agencies who said whatever. Now it's going to be, no, 12 of your military officers have been indicted in my nation.
I think it does help Trump. And,
I do, too.
And the reason I think it helps Trump in a political sense, but, you know, it helps with the meeting, but it helps in a political sense, too, because, yeah, this is the Russia case that we should all be concerned about, and it's important. And when he takes that seriously and he says, yes, I'm going to go to Putin and I'm going to ask him questions about it, it shows how serious he is about something that's serious compared to this other thing, the Russia whatever thing about Trump and collusion and all this nonsense that the Democrats cannot let go of, and so many people in the media cannot let go of. The contrast between the two of this guy being serious.
Well, as David pointed out, there's evidence for this.
Yeah, exactly.
And also,
that's the huge difference right now that we know of.
And also the campaigns were never told, the Trump campaign was never told that the Russians were trying to hack. I mean, why weren't they informed of that? If the Obama administration knew, why weren't the campaigns told to be extra cautious because this is happening? Why?
Very true. That's
weird.
a great question. And as we mentioned, this announcement from AG Rosenstein is coming just ahead of the president's summit with Vladimir Putin. Today, he gave us a taste of what we can expect on Monday in Helsinki.
So we go in strong. We'll be talking to President Putin about a number of things. Ukraine. We'll be talking about Syria. We'll be talking about other parts of the Middle East. I will be talking about nuclear proliferation. I know you'll ask, will we be talking about meddling? And I will absolutely bring that up. I don't think you'll have any, gee, I did it, you got me. There won't be a Perry Mason here, I don't think, but you never know what happens, right? But I will absolutely, firmly ask the question. And hopefully we'll have a very good relationship with Russia.
Well, that's pretty unmistakable. Republicans, while cautious, are generally voicing support for the meeting, but most Democrats say the sit-down only benefits Putin and will not stop Russia's hostile acts towards the U.S. Watch this.